In 1973, Chrysler was selling sedans weighing 5,000 pounds that barely managed 15 miles per gallon. Within 5 years, the company was hemorrhaging nearly $1 billion. Its stock collapsed from $36 to $6. Bankruptcy headlines were everywhere. Everyone blamed the oil crisis. Everyone blamed the flood of Japanese compacts on American roads. But the real story is stranger, because one of those threats may have quietly saved Chrysler from extinction. October 1973. Gasoline pumps across America ran dry overnight. Drivers snaked their way around city blocks, headlights flickering in the cold morning, each car inching forward with the hope of reaching the nozzle before the station hangs a hand-lettered sign that reads "No gas today." The price on the pump, just 39 cents a gallon a few weeks earlier, now leaps past $1. That is a 170% jump in less than a year. News anchors on CBS and NBC warn of rationing, odd-even license plate days, and a new reality where a full tank is a luxury. Tempers flare in line as hours slip by, engines idling for what feels like forever. Some motorists carry coffee cans, hoping to scrounge a gallon or two for the drive home. Others abandon their cars, defeated by the weight. The newspapers fill with photos of gridlocked boulevards and headlines that declare the end of the road for America's gas-guzzling giants. Suddenly, the 5,000-pound sedans that once symbolized status and comfort become a liability, unwanted, unsellable, almost overnight. The promise of endless cheap fuel evaporates, replaced by anxiety and a sense that something fundamental about American life is slipping away. For families, for workers, for the industry itself, the rules have changed. The search for something smaller, thriftier, and more reliable begins not out of choice, but out of necessity. Toyota, Datsun, and Honda slipped into American driveways with little fanfare, but they brought something Detroit had not taken seriously: real-world fuel economy. The 1975 Toyota Corolla delivered 21 miles per gallon on the EPA label, 8 miles per gallon better than the average domestic V8 sedan. Datsun's 510 and 210 models went even further, posting 24 miles per gallon and earning a reputation for handling that made them favorites among young families and first-time buyers. But it was the Honda Civic, especially the CVCC version, that turned heads at the gas pump. With a combined EPA rating of 32 miles per gallon, the Civic not only doubled the mileage of a Chrysler New Yorker, it did so without a catalytic converter. That meant fewer maintenance headaches and lower ownership costs, just as the Clean Air Act was making emissions controls a household concern. Consumer Reports put these Japanese compacts through their paces in 1975 and found them not just thrifty, but reliable, ranking the Corolla and Civic above every American compact for both fuel economy and trouble-free operation. Magazine ads boasted 30 miles per gallon guaranteed, and promised a new kind of value: less time at the pump, more money in the wallet, and fewer trips to the mechanic. For American buyers, the numbers spoke louder than loyalty. Suddenly, the Corolla and Civic were not just imports, they were lifelines. In a world where a gallon of gas cost more than a steak dinner, the little Japanese cars that Detroit once laughed off were now the smart choice. And as their sales climbed, the pressure on Chrysler's big, thirsty lineup began to mount. Chrysler's showrooms, once filled with chrome and confidence, turned quiet in the late 1970s. The numbers tell the story, brutally and without mercy. In just 5 years, Chrysler's big V8 passenger car sales collapsed by 72%. The company had sold nearly 500,000 of these flagship sedans in 1973. By 1978, that number had fallen to just over 100,000. The assembly line slowed, then stopped. Workers who had built the same engines for decades found their shifts cut, their jobs at risk, their futures uncertain. Wall Street watched with growing alarm. In January 1978, Chrysler's stock traded at $36 a share. By the fall of the next year, it had plunged to $6 a share. Headlines in the Wall Street Journal and the Boston Globe warned of a company on the edge. For investors, decades of blue-chip dividends vanished in a matter of months. For dealers, unsold inventory gathered dust, while customers weighed every dollar and every mile per gallon. The financial loss for 1978 alone approached $950 million. That is not a rounding error or a tough quarter. That is a hemorrhage. The company's cash reserves drained away, and every new report brought fresh rumors of bankruptcy. For thousands of Chrysler workers and their families, the threat of layoffs became a daily reality. In Detroit, Toledo, and beyond, the fear was no longer about losing a sale. It was about losing a way of life. The crisis was not abstract. It was paychecks, mortgages, and the sound of a factory gone silent. Congressional hearings in the summer of 1979 brought the drama of Chrysler's collapse into the national spotlight. Lawmakers, union leaders, and Lee Iacocca himself sat beneath the harsh glare of television lights, each side weighing what it meant to let a Detroit giant fail, or to step in with taxpayer money. The numbers on the table were staggering. Chrysler wanted up to $1.5 billion in federal loan guarantees, more than any American automaker had ever requested. Public Law 96-185, signed by President Carter, set the ceiling and spelled out the conditions. The government would not simply write a blank check. Chrysler had to prove it could survive, and that meant cutting costs, selling assets, and convincing banks to share the risk. In the back rooms and on the record, the message was clear. The era of the oversized, gas-hungry sedan was finished. If Chrysler wanted a lifeline, it needed a plan for the future, not just a bailout for the past. Iacocca stood before Congress and promised a new direction. Internal memos from June 1979, now part of the company's engineering archives, outlined what that meant in practice. They called for a front-wheel drive, compact platform capable of at least 30 miles per gallon. The so-called K-car charter became Chrysler's North Star. Engineers were ordered to design a car that could compete with the best from Japan, but be built in Detroit by American workers. The loan guarantee was more than a financial rescue. It was a wager on reinvention, with Congress and Chrysler betting that a company known for horsepower and chrome could pivot to efficiency and survive. The stakes were not just corporate profits, but the livelihoods of tens of thousands of workers and the pride of an industry that had defined American ambition for half a century. On one side of the showroom, the 1973 Chrysler New Yorker stands as a monument to another era. Nearly 5,000 pounds, a V8 under the hood, and an EPA sticker that promises just 15 miles per gallon on a good day. Next to it, the Dodge Aries from 1981 looks almost fragile by comparison. The scale tips at just over 2,400 pounds. 30 miles per gallon, city and highway, right there in bold on the window sticker. Where the New Yorker once boasted rear-wheel drive and enough steel to survive a fender bender without a scratch, the Aries is front-wheel drive, compact and engineered for efficiency above all else. Consumer Reports, once skeptical of Chrysler's quality, now calls out the K-car's fuel savings and reliability in their 1981 road test. This is not just a new model. It is a new idea of what a Chrysler can be. The difference is more than numbers on a specification sheet. It is a complete rewrite of the company's DNA, born from necessity and shaped by the engineers who understood that the old formula would no longer keep the doors open. In 1981, Chrysler moved nearly 380,000 Dodge Aries and Plymouth Reliant K-cars off the lot, beating every internal forecast and surpassing the minimums set by the government's loan agreement. That was not just a comeback, it was a statement. By March 1983, Chrysler had repaid every cent of the $1.5 billion federal loan 2 years ahead of schedule. The Treasury issued a press release calling it a triumph. But the real victory played out in driveways and parking lots across America. For buyers, the K-car offered something Detroit had not delivered in years: fuel economy, reliability, and a price that made sense. For Chrysler, the numbers on the sales table and the early loan repayment were not just milestones. They were proof that the company's survival depended on adapting to a world shaped by foreign competition. It's a twist that still invites debate. Did Japan save Chrysler by outcompeting it? Or did Chrysler save itself by finally listening to what buyers wanted all along? Today, foreign rivals still shape every Detroit decision. The real twist? Competition, once feared, became a lifeline. Chrysler's survival proves that reinvention is often forced from the outside. In a world chasing efficiency, adaptability isn't optional, it's survival. What's your memory of that turning point? Share it below.